Maureen O'Sullivan.
When James Joyce was offering his book Dubliners to his publishers in London, he drew attention to what he called was the special odour of corruption that hangs over his stories. And a quote from him, he said, "It is not my fault that the odour of ash pits and old offal hangs around my stories." Well, we're not assailed by the odours of offal and ash pits, but we are assailed by a far more odious and offensive and pervasive odour, and it's the one of greed and selfishness and corruption that we're seeing that's at the heart of what we are discussing tonight and tomorrow night. You know, and having gone through some of the abuses that we've been discussing in the Dáil recently, we looked at the residential institutions, we looked at the Magdalene laundries, the ladies who suffer the ordeal of symphysiotomy, and you kind of think to yourself, well, that's the end of it. There couldn't be any more horror stories. But then we come to this particular horror story, and we see the abuse that's involved here, and it's an abuse of people who are using those services. And it's also an abuse of the generosity of the Irish people. And this scandal at the CRC, I think, has done untold damage to charities and the charitable organisations in this country. I mean, the first point I'd like to make is that people with special needs, mental and physical, our elderly, our schools, our homeless, shouldn't have to rely on charity and fundraising in order to address their needs. But the reality is that that's what has to happen, and that they do need fundraising services for those needs. And it's due to a lack of commitment on the part of successive governments to adequately address the needs of those sections in society. And when you look at the composition of the CRC boards, you can't help but wonder that it's almost like a who's who of members of the Fianna Fáil party. And you can't help also but coming to the conclusion that the CRC and other institutions like the Mater Hospital allow themselves to be used as a thank you for those who served Fianna Fáil in the past. And it has to be a source of embarrassment for current members of the party. And it's unfortunate that that system of rewards for members of political parties, by putting them on boards, is also continues in this Dáil. I have a fear that when other charitable organisations are looked into, that more of what we see in the CRC is going to come to light. Can I just ask about the work of the charity regulator in the NENA office of the Revenue Commissioners? For the past 40 years, I've been on the voluntary board of a number of small charities and organisations, and I just think of the amount of paperwork and the amount of rules and regulations that we have to go through in order to get charitable status, and the extent of the professional fees that these organisations have to pay. And there's governance for the small charities, but I'm just wondering where they were for the larger ones. I very much support that Charities Act is going to come into operation and that there will be a charity regulator whom I hope will put the best interests of those he serves at the heart of his work.
Thank you, Deputy. Could I ask, Deputy, that you would move that the debate be adjourned? Yeah. Come on, let's conclude the debate this evening. The